Greetings. I'd like to welcome you to this auspicious occasion for Look to the Whirlwind. It has been well organized by the Black Speculative Arts Movement from Canada. I'd like to welcome our friends from around the world who support the Afro-Futurists 2.0 Black Speculative Arts Movement and its international network of artists and creators. We look forward to this discussion between Afro-futurists and Pan-Afrikanists as we begin to chart a future for people of African descent around the world. My name is Dr. Reynaldo Anderson, the executive founder of the Black Speculative Arts Movement. And once again, we welcome you and we hope that you enjoy what we have to present to you today. Thank you.
Our mission today is to co-host a global BSAM event that centers individual chapter accomplishments and the future of the movement, Pan-African style, all while honoring Marcus Garvey and his legacy. Our vision today is to educate, empower, and engage the community in constructive dialogue about the movement's presence and build upon the resilience that has afforded us created opportunities to grow and thrive. The Look for Us in the Whirlwind event shares what Afro-diasporic creatives are doing to build towards a more efficient and sustainable Afrocentric future. It features a gathering of Pan-Afrikanists and Afro-futurist speakers that will share messages focused on education, the arts and their respective disciplines, and community development. Afrofuturism 2.0 explores the notions of Garvey's Pan-African vision that imagines new transnational connections and possibilities. This gathering is not only to celebrate the life of the Honourable Marcus Garvey, but also the legacy he planted that speaks to a prophetic Afrofuturistic vision of unifying and self-empowering African people.
Because we are stretched across the globe, today's webinar format will be a mixture of video and live conversation. We ask that during the presentations you keep your microphones off. Questions should be typed into the Q&A and will be answered by the moderators during the live portion. Each chapter of the Black Speculative Arts Movement and affiliated artists and community leaders will give an overview of their work within the movement. At the conclusion of the recorded segment, contact information for each BSAM chapter will be displayed by the moderators.
Community agreement. Be present. Be on time. Participate. Try to refrain from checking your emails or doing other tasks when possible. Take breaks. Step away when needed for a moment for self-care. Go get you a glass of water. Stretch your legs. Call each other in as much as we call each other out. When challenging someone's ideas and behavior, give feedback respectfully. When your own ideas and behavior are challenged, receive feedback respectfully. Create a space for multiple truths. Speak your truth and seek understanding of truths that differ from yours. Celebrate and embrace different perspectives. Assume best intentions. Everyone comes with a different set of experiences and knowledge. Seek first to understand and assume the best intentions in all interactions. Recognize that intent is different from impact. Things we say may have a negative impact on others. Despite our intent, be accountable for the impact, your actions and words. Step up, step back. Be mindful of taking too much or too little space. Notice power dynamics. Power shows up in many different ways. Be aware of how you might be unconsciously using your privilege and power. And last but not least, center learning and growth. This work is sometimes uncomfortable and uncertain. We may not always know the answer or arrive at neat, tidy resolutions. We will make mistakes along the way, remembering we are all learning and growing both individually and collectively. We won't fix it all in one meeting, but we will get closer if we're willing to be uncomfortable. Thank you. We shall now have the pouring of libations. And as we invite and show gratitude to the earth and the ancestors, such as the Honourable Mosiah Garvey and Amy Garvey, please take these few moments of silence to meditate, reflect, and ground yourself. Before we hear from Dr. Julius Garvey and some of our global delegates, we would first like to share with you some information about the hosting BSAM chapters, BSAM Houston, BSAM Memphis, and BSAM Canada.
A tradition of political activism through art. BSAM Houston is the local Houston chapter of the Black Speculative Arts Movement. We focus on art and education. The Black Speculative Arts Movement is a movement based off of Dr. Reynaldo Anderson's book Afro-Futurism 2.0. BSAM Houston is comprised of 4 organizations: Artivism Community Art, I'm It's Art, Imagiread, and the Texas Southern University Communication Department. The Black Speculative Arts Movement aims to continue the reach of Afrofuturism and the work of Afrocentric knowledge in communities of color. We are helping young students continue the tradition of Black radical imagination in Black art. Revolutionary action through art. Network of artists, community leaders, educators, and students in order to create the future we wish to see.
A bright star among the constellation of nations. Hi, I'm Sheree Renée Thomas, author of 9 Bar Blues, editor of Dark Matter, and founder of BSAM Memphis, the Black Speculative Arts Movement. Marcus Garvey's desire to see Africans and the descendants of Africans thrive and prosper in our world is one that speaks to the heart of our work here in Memphis. Here we celebrate the creative genius of African art and culture through the lens of Afrofuturism. For me, as a speculative fiction writer, Afrofuturism and the Black Speculative Arts Movement is an organizing grassroots tool for communal action and artistic exploration. In 2016, I edited Speculating Futures, the award-winning double volume of Obsidian, Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora. I also hosted our first conference, Black to the Future, at the beautiful Art Village Gallery in the historic South Main Arts District of Memphis, and that took place during the Africa in April celebrations. I also spoke at the Cannes Film Festival and traveled with BSAM to Berlin, Rome, Birmingham, UK, and Basque Country in Spain. In 2019, we repped at the Mercedes-Benz South by Southwest International Festival in Frankfurt. And here in Memphis, we introduced Neighborhood Heroes, our youth literacy and arts program that uses comics, graphic novels, and science fiction as educational resources to help build self-esteem and civic pride in our youth. We're creating Mojo, the journal of the Black Speculative Arts Movement, and we're looking forward to other exciting projects from here in Memphis and our colleagues in Mississippi. We at BSAM Memphis see our work as a continuation of the vital editorial vision of Marcus Garvey and Amy Garvey. Wishing you all clear vision and continued success and good health in the time ahead. Thank you from Memphis, Tennessee.
And now we have to go. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1.
Through projects, programs, and partnerships, BSAM Canada Institute aims to elevate and evolve the experiences and well-being of the Afro-diasporic communities.
Starting off as a collective in 2016, BSAM Canada Institute is not just an organization, but also a platform that uses art for social change. It is led by artivist and educator Queen Kukoyi, cosplayer and scholar Nico Taylor, and Afro-futurist and digital storyteller Quentin VerCetty.
Mission and values. BSAM Canada Institute's mission combines theory and practice using a speculative lens to create a better future for the next generation. This includes the following.
Taking care of the mind, body, and energy. We utilize Afro-Indigenous-centered spirituality and wellness, such as Kemetic yoga, Dogon cosmology, food security, along with meditative and mindfulness practices.
Developing a critical vocabulary. We place a focus on visual and textual literacy, such as the study of signs and metaphors in media and communication to enhance the awareness of visual and textual language practices.
Community economics. We encourage Pan-African worldviews and practices that inform financial literacy and long-term investing to aid in community economics and sustainable frameworks.
Cultivating interdisciplinary insight. We incorporate applied and theoretical STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and metaphysics, which includes divination and mathematics, meditation and mindfulness practices, education such as digital rendering, augmented reality, and rapid prototyping.
Global citizenship. We implement social sciences and sociology to further develop an understanding of Pan-Africanist, cultural context, and relations to our future.
See me I say, the Honourable Mosiah Garvey and Dr. Julius Garvey's work both influence BSAM Canada and how we educate people on how they think about their future. Marcus Garvey once said, "We shall go forward, upwards, and onwards towards the great goal of human liberty." The forward ever sentiment of Garvey's words is the basis of BSAM Canada's mandate. BSAM Canada is inspired by the work of both Garvey, his family, and legacy of the UNIA and the ACL, which started in Nova Scotia in 1918 by focusing on regional strength and connections. The UNIA did this successfully, whereas by 1922, Garvey opened up over 44 chapters across Canada. In each of the 8 cities that BSAM Canada operates today in, all has had UNIA chapters before. Garvey believed that the people of African descent in the diaspora can find their way back to Africa through pride and dignity in their cultural expression and through education. His advocacy, more importantly, through the arts was strong, as he himself was a poet, playwright, and enjoyed dancing and fine artwork of other African creatives. BSAM Canada's work is a direct echo of Garvey's one aim, one destiny rhetoric, as BSAM Canada work is about getting our liberation through expanding the imagination. Garvey once said, "Liberate the minds of men and ultimately you'll liberate their bodies." To which he also said the Negro have to build his own industry, art, sciences, literature, and cultures before the world to stop to consider him. But BSAM Canada ain't waiting for no one, nobody to consider us. And through our programs and projects, we are focused on considering ourselves and our ultimate destiny of being universally liberated, striving African people.
BSAM Canada Institute provincial-wide partnership network of Black organizations and artists who co-produce exhibits and conventions that connect Black Canadians with interests in health and wellness, critical literacy, art, education, science, technology, counter-histories, and the speculative sphere.
Baobab Project. The Baobab Project is a collaborative African historical, contemporary, and futuristic arts STEAM program that teaches young people about their history through the retelling of stories of resilience by racialized Canadians. It introduces young people to science, engineering, and music through mentorship, career exploration, experiential learning, and workshops.
Cosmic Underground Northside, an incantation of Black Canadian speculative discourses and inner standings. This seminal collection consists of works from cross-generations and pan-national Black creatives and cultural producers from Canada. This generous book offers a glimpse of different understandings, a profound comprehension, or conviction within one's spirit or soul.
Garvey I would like to be. If I may come in an earthquake or a plague or a pestilence or as God would have me, then be assured that I shall never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. Will I not go to hell a million times for you? If I don't, my work will only just then begin. For I shall live in the physical or the spiritual to see the day of Africa's glory. When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, the black, and the green around me, for in the new life I shall rise up with God's strength and blessing to lead the millions up the heights and the triumph that you well know. Look for me in a world when I was calm. Look for you out great. I shall come back with countless millions of black men and women who have died in America, those who have died in the West Indies, and those who have died in Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life.
Hey, my name is Amirah, and last year I made history as the youngest Afro-futurist. I first learned about Marcus Garvey when I was 10 years old, so that was about 2017. Marcus Garvey's Pan-African movement is important because it connects us globally to our past and future. In about 1912, he started the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and his goals were to allow us to have our government and our lands and to have our own way of life. I first got into Afrofuturism by having conversations with my mother about science and our history. Then after we had those conversations, it evolved to doing art with my mom about all these black people in history, and mine and hers ended up getting aired on internet globally. Happy Marcus Garvey Day! Ay, ay, ay.
The Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey was born in Jamaica in 1887 and is known for his profound views that helped propel the black nationalists and Pan-Afrikanists and the Afro-futurism movement. He believed that people of African diaspora must find their way back to Africa through pride and dignity in their cultural expressions. At the core of Afro-futurism 2.0 is Pan-Afrikanism. We say there is no Afro-futurism without African unity. Marcus Mosiah Garvey is seen as a prophet, visionary, and an Afro-futurist who brought forth the ideal, movement, and motivation for Africans at home and abroad to reunite, overcome the mental slavery of colonization, organize, and re-empower themselves for themselves. The impact of Marcus Mosiah Garvey's life, work, and influence continues through his son, Dr. Julius Garvey, who has diligently extended the teachings of his father's vision and mission to this date. Dr. Julius Garvey is a surgeon and medical professor, born in Kingston, Jamaica, where he attended the Women's Trusted High School for Boys. And then he spent some time in foreign, specifically Canada, earning his degrees at McGill University in 1957 and then getting his doctorate in 1961. Dr. Julius Garvey is a firm believer that African people everywhere needs to carry forth the work that previous leaders have instilled, and he holds this idea dear of his father, which he first voiced on ensuring that people of the African diaspora are self-sufficient and there is unity between those on the continent and those located throughout the various regions of the world. Since 2016, Dr. Garvey has pushed to clear his father's name and receive a pardon from the U.S. government so that his father's contributions are fully recognized. Dr. Garvey has also been a huge support of Pan-African arts, especially Afrofuturism, and has generously contributed a beautiful quote for the first Canadian Afrofuturism art book, The Cosmic Underground Northside, an incantation of Black Canadian speculative discourse and understandings, which will be available in the fall of 2020. It is with great honor that BSAM International thanks Dr. Julius Garvey for being here with us all to commemorate his father's work and to speak to the future of Pan-Africanism. Without further ado, Dr. Garvey.
Okay, basically my father's legacy is laying the foundation for the Pan-African nation, which would constitute Africans at home in the continent of Africa and Africans abroad in the diaspora, that is wherever we are at the present time. We're just about everywhere in terms of Europe, North, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, etc. So the concept was to unify Africans. So there was this new understanding, this new feeling among Negroes. And as a matter of fact, it came to be called the New Negroes. I don't know whether my father coined the term or not, but certainly that was a term used, the New Negroes. And the New Negroes, of course, were fighting against lynching, we're fighting against discrimination, we're fighting against racism, we're fighting against police brutality. I don't know if that sounds like today with the Black Lives Matter movement fighting for social justice, but this was 100 years ago. So at some point in time, you have to ask yourself, well, what has happened in between? You see, because this is a replay of the early teens and the 20s during the time of Marcus Garvey and when he formed the organization. And a number of people, therefore, now saw this as an ideology and a way to come together as African people, independent of the white power structure, which was clearly racist and exploitative and demeaning of African people as human beings. So his organization grew by leaps and bounds, and as a matter of fact, August the 1st was the celebration of 100 years of the first international convention of the Negro peoples of the world, where he brought together more than 2,500 delegates from all over the world to New York City, Harlem, to Liberty Hall, which was his own building constructed and so on. And, they had more than 1,000 employees there in New York City. So, they had a good thing going. But to deliberate on the conditions of African people worldwide from August the 1st to August the 31st. And they came out with the Declaration of the Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World, which had, 54 different declarations and proclamations and so on and so forth in terms of how we should be treated and what we won't put up with and so on and so forth. So that was really, the first time that had happened. That was like our Magna Carta. The United Nations didn't have a Declaration of the Rights of people. At that time, it wasn't even the United Nations. The League of Nations didn't have it, and of course went out of business. So, and this was very, 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 very advanced thinking in terms of trying to bring us together as a people, try to create a nation. And I think what you're going to see now coming out of the pandemic is going to be a whole blowback, because the pandemic has weakened Europe, it's weakened the United States. I think China will come out of it stronger. And I think now is the time for really African people to come together. Because if you look at it, you'll see Africans tend to move forward when there are times of crisis in Europe and with the European powers that have incarcerated them. And that was 1914-18 when Europeans were killing each other, although they brought us into it, and it was a world war. But as I just mentioned, what came out of that in terms of 1920, the Garvey movement, he was able to galvanize and bring together 10 million African people all over the world, so that the seeds that he planted at that time are still there, growing trees and bearing fruit. And then you look at the Second World War, 1940 to 1945. And again, you look at what came out of the 1945 Manchester conference, as I mentioned. Kwame Nkrumah was there, Jomo Kenyatta was there, W.B. Du Bois was there, my father's first wife was there, my mother contributed to the people that came, George Padmore, and so on and so forth. So then the baton was passed to Africa, and they took that now, to Africa. And Macmillan, in terms of the Prime Minister of England, says he could sense the winds of change. And you see, from back in and before 57, he could sense the winds of change. And that's why you had India was independent in 1947. You see, right after the World War. And then it was Africa's turn. Ghana was the first one, 57, and so on. And so now we have not the Third World War, but we have a worldwide pandemic. Okay, where the systems now have been tested. Some of them are weak and are broken, okay? And those that are strong will survive the systems, but there's a general weakening of the stranglehold that has kept us back for the last 500 years. So this is another period for us to move forward. And it's a period for us to move forward by uniting. It's a period for us to move forward by embracing people like you, the younger generation, so that you understand what we've been through, you understand the history. You learn from what we've done, you learn from the mistakes, and then you take it and you move forward. We know it's really heaven on earth. That was what our civilizations in Africa gave to the world, you know, thousands of years ago. And yes, Garvey is the original Afro-futurist, if you will, because that's exactly what he was doing. Reconstructing African civilization, in a sense, better than before. Joe Biden now is saying, build back better. Well, that's what Garvey was saying. We're going to rebuild African civilization. He called it African redemption, but it's a rebuilding of African civilization based on the philosophy, based on the cosmology, based on the spirituality, based on the understanding of our African ancestors. He even said that there's knowledge there that we have not unearthed yet. And it's up to us and the further generations coming down to unearth this knowledge so that all of us can have it. So yes, I agree with you completely that Marcus Garvey is your original Afro-futurist. Not to big up Marcus Garvey because I'm his son, but it's a genuine feeling. I have not read anyone or anything that has said as much as Marcus Garvey has said. And I'm talking about black, white, and otherwise, and I'm talking about not just what Marcus Garvey said for black people, but what he said for all human beings. Because what he is talking about is African humanity. And African humanity is the humanity. We're the prototype. Everything is like a copy and say, okay, you know, we're a little different here and a little different there, but we are the original 200,000 years ago, Homo sapiens sapiens, that is us. And we didn't see any variations till like 15,000 years ago. So, you know, history is us, humanity is us. So when Garvey talks about African redemption, he's talking about the redemption of humankind because there's been an aberration. You know, like some people have a history that they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. African people don't have that history. That's not part of our mythology. You see, there's no question that some people were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. They kicked themselves out, if you will, by their behavior, you know? And what Garvey is bringing back is really African humanism, and that's what we have to talk about. It's African humanism, and that is going to be the new paradigm for the whole world versus materialism, European materialism. Okay? So, you know, Marcus Garvey, I think this was something that most people don't understand about him. He understood himself. My own feeling that he was connected to the divine. And he was bringing to us the divine message. And that is what all of us can do, bring to the world our divinity, manifest our divinity. And that is what self-knowledge means. And it's not just in books. You can read the books, but you have to know yourself. And there's a way to do it and so on and so forth, which obviously we can't go into here.
Don't know. Give thanks, Papa Julius Garvey, for speaking on the legacy of your father, the great Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and his legacy, and what we as a people need to do to achieve the future that we want to see through the Pan-African spirit and through the use of arts and culture. At this moment in time, we are now going to hear from BSAM international affiliates and associates as they share the influence of Garvey and the influence of his vision of Pan-Africanism in their work of connecting the diaspora and the continent and vice versa.
Today we commemorate the work of Mosiah Marcus Garvey. Mosiah Marcus Garvey is considered a prophet. Although I have never met him, I have met his son, his direct blood descendant. And through his son, I have seen the work, the legacy, the inheritance that Mosiah Marcus Garvey has left behind for us. He is considered a prophet for his thoughts, his work, his unrelenting contributions to the betterment of Kemetic people. His son, Julius Garvey, has carried the blood with pride, the work with pride, with admiration for his father, and has, through his life, been inspired to contribute as much for the betterment of Kemetic people. His mother, Julius Garvey's mother, Amy Garvey, has assisted in the destiny of her husband, of her children, of her 2 sons, and she has done in a way where she has assisted in the best way, finding her role, finding her position next to the movement, the work, and the powerful presence of Marcus Garvey. Amy Garvey has also had to raise her sons, transcribe the work, typed, publish, represent the work after Marcus Garvey had passed away. And she did that relentlessly. And so she is the wife who has believed and understood the legacy of the work. And the legacy of this work is really manifold. It is, for us, it is left behind for us to get in touch, to come across in so many beautiful ways, to witness, even though the person has transitioned. It is to witness the strength, the righteousness, the depth of the message and the movement that was created. A lot of it is prophetic in that it is so far-reaching behind that we have the sense that Marcus Garvey understood his purpose in life. He understood the ancestral chain of which he was a part and of which he became a strong link. He understood that his word would carry beyond his physical living on this earth. And so he inspires us to look for evidence, to look for work, and to look for traces of this passage and this rightful thought, to look for it through the elements. Here in water, we know that this river carries our energy, my words, words of power, intentions, and connects all over the earth. And one of the dreams that Mosiah Garvey understood was that the Kemetic nest and rest of the early humanist work was on the land called Africa, or better yet, Merita, our beloved land. And even though he has not set foot on this land, he has clearly given the instruction for people to understand the return, the necessary retouching and reacquaintance with the land. A land where humanity was at its clearest, at its best performance, because there was order. And that is one of the work's characteristic, is that there was substance and structure. And so in assembling the people, he created, manifested, and exercised a structure that is, when we understand it, so strong, so well built, so profound, that it has the roots and the fruits carrying to this day for those who would hear this message. This message, this movement, is also carried through the air, sometimes through storms, and sometimes throughout stormy times. It is also carried through fire, which is an energy that can burn and destroy, but that can also warm and move mountains. So in the elements, we find the message which was rooted in the elements. We need to complete each person, almost as a pilgrimage, this return back to the motherland. We need to put action to words in order to be the carriers of that dream, of that vision, really, that inspires us, that instructs us, and reconnects us to reclaim our ancestral lineage and our ancestral treasures left to us, worded to us back from Mosiah Marcus Garvey. Thank you. Wow.
Okay, I'm Dr. Natasha Kelly. I have a PhD in Communication Studies and Sociology from University of Münster in Germany. And I live, love, and laugh in Berlin. So that's where I'm located. That's where I'm talking to you, from where I'm talking to you right now. And at the moment, I am an independent scholar, artist, curator, author, filmmaker. So I'm more in, I would say I work at the intersection of art, activism, and academia. And I think this is not a choice I made. I think that's important to say. But this is a result of the power structures here in Germany. Germany is not ready for Black female professors yet. So I was, after my PhD, like forced into this realm of art and creativity, where they put people like me, abjects who don't really fit into their society. So that's the space from where I've been creating and producing knowledge and art for, I would say, good 20 years now. You know? That's what I do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what else shall I say? What does Garvey mean to me? Well, especially I'm proud of every Jamaican that I find in a history book. Yeah, but coming back to the history books, we don't find Marcus Garvey in German history books yet. So this still is work that needs to be done. You know, to ask the question, why is Marcus Garvey important to Germany, and how can we you know, put him in a German context so that people understand this connectivity of the diaspora. This was possible, for example, through Du Bois because he studied here. So it was easier for me to open a diasporic narrative through Du Bois. But with Marcus Garvey, it is a little bit more difficult, where I would have to go digging to connect him to this context. And this is still work that needs to be done. And I think that I'm like at the doorstep of that, you know, of really moving forward in these whole Pan-African discourses, and so to say, moving into the future, or even creating future, going back into the past and actually rewriting history and repositioning figures and theories or legacies like Garvey. I always like to remind people that we in ourselves, we are the vision of our ancestors, you know? And in order to move forward, we need to continue to create visions of future, visions of, we all know now, well, I hope in Germany, we're still struggling, you know, with the idea that racism exists, but we know what we're fighting against, but do we know what we're fighting for, you know? And what does this utopia actually look like? You know, why are we putting our life on the line? What is it we are fighting for? How do we want world society to look like once racism, sexism, capitalism, and all the other isms have gone? What does this society actually look like? And these are my last words for this conversation. To really empower people to think, to start reimagining and using, you know, their creativity, cognitive creativity, to really start materializing their thoughts so that we actually get to this place where we want to be. And that's what all I can say for now. Yeah, this is what we need to start turning the debate, you know, on not only fighting against something, but at the same time being aware that we're fighting against something for something. Yeah, and so sometimes in these debates, I'm missing the for. What are we actually fighting for? You know, because we get stuck in the past, but we have to, in an Afrocentric sense, in a Pan-African sense, in the philosophy of Sankofa, yeah, we have to, it's circular. Time is circular. We have to go back to the past, bring the past into the future, into the present to actually create the future. And this is how we have to set our mind patterns going now, because we kind of like missed the step of really creating future out of all this mess that's going on in the world right now. So these are my last empowering words for today. I would say, let's create that future we want to live in, you know, and don't leave it up to certain presidents of the world to create it for us, you know, because that's definitely, we're not going to be stopped fighting if we do, you know. So that's what I would say.
Hello everybody, this is Annoual. My artist name is Japan Records, Ethiopia, and I'm an electronic Asmari. I make music called Ethiopia Electronic, and I'm from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And yeah, the kind of music I make, Ethiopia Electronic, is the kind of music that tries to make traditional music out of electronic music tools. And I describe myself as a Pan-Afrikanist, as a Sankarist, but I don't describe myself as an Afro-futurist. I've co-founded a record label / event company / representation company called WAG Entertainment with my friend Luul. This company was founded by me, a musician, and him, a filmmaker, for one really simple reason. It's because as we were struggling through our crafts, as me making my music and making his movies, we've seen that there's no structural support for African artists, none, not coming from the private sector or the government. So there's no like real representation company, especially for artists that do not just want to entertain, and there's no real like governmental backing of any kind. We're seeing that through the COVID-19 times, when we haven't worked in 5 months, 6 months, and we have no support, none whatsoever. So yeah, that's one of the many reasons why we founded this record label. That's why two artists who usually really don't like getting involved in like the business of it, like the business side of it, get involved because there's nobody else who's ready to step up and do it, and nobody is better fitted than ourselves because we understand our vision and we know what we want out of it. We're about using art as a tool to advance art itself as a craft, or to advance society or change society in positive ways. We're trying to create a gentrification-free space that empowers truly gifted African voices, African and Black voices from all around the world. And I believe that we should be able to grab hold of our fate and walk, because that's what, for me, Pan-Africanism is. It's empowering Africans to come together and take charge of our fate, and not let like international organizations run our financial, economical, philosophical, artistic, and every aspect of our lives. I don't think that's a plausible way to take things. I don't think it's a realistic way of doing things anymore, because we've seen where it leads. It leads to most African countries, even though they have very big economic booms. The economic boom is only for a certain part of the African society. The majority of the African society, the farmers, the poor people, the working class people, have completely been forgotten. And it's time we put the majority back in the limelight. Because that's what the people that I believe in, the individuals in who I believe in, like Sankara, Lumumba, and Amilcar Cabral, have laid their lives down for. And that's my mission. And but aside from that, it's to make great music. Right now, we're running with my coworker Lul. We're running, and our coworker in Ghana, Accra, but he's from Lagos, named Zikora. We're running a funding campaign called Well to survive the time that we're in now, because as I said, we haven't worked in 5 months, and a lot of artists, our friends, haven't worked in 5 months. And thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me this platform, for sharing my message and my experience. Yes, bless.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Omwan Emmanuel Ikenna from Nigeria. I'm from the Igbo tribe. I'm a physicist, a filmmaker, and a visual effects supervisor, currently the National Director for the Black Speculative Arts Movement, Nigeria chapter. The name Nigeria was not even given to us by our people, but by the British. And since they came to Nigeria, or since they came and united us, this space, Nigeria, called Nigeria, is no longer the same. It's from one conflict to another. They've brought disunity. You see, the Igbos having issues with the Hausas and Hausas having issues with the Igbos and the Yorubas having issues with the Igbos, the whole conflict. It was actually initiated by these people in order to steal our resources. Of course, they are still doing that. The reason why Nigeria is the way it is now is because of the Western civilization and the cultures that they have indoctrinated us with. There is a lady, a Black American lady, she said she's from the Igbo tribe. She was talking about how our mental enslavement in Nigeria is different from the mental enslavement of Black people in the US. So from my observation, I see that there is need for us, those my Black brothers and sisters in diaspora, to come together with this different experience from the US and the experience we have in Nigeria. If we can come together as a team, we'll be able to solve the problem of Nigeria. Like, there is one thing I know very much and I'm very sure about is that cultures can bring people together. Yes, cultures can bring people together. Like, the only place I see the Igbo, the Hausas, and the Yorubas come together is during a football match when they have a common club they support. You know, that kind of thing. Then imagine when we all bring our cultures together and try to understand ourselves and reunite ourselves, how much we'll achieve. They know the games they play. And through this Pan-African movement, we can come together and as Africans to address our problems, not going out there to the Europe to meet a white man to solve your problem. We can solve our problems within us. We know ourselves more than they do. But I don't see the reason why anytime they are having any meetings, we'll just go there to only snap pictures. I see my president the other time, they just go there to snap pictures and come back and smile and write one long list of something that is of no importance to us. I think it's high time for us to come together as one, as Black people, to solve our problems. I also encourage my Black friends and my African friends and brothers to come to Africa to invest and develop Africa. Because what is actually happening with our resources is that after these our leaders, these our selfish leaders are a kind of brainwashed. They loot our resources and then they develop the Western world. They go there to build factories, build industries, buy estates and a lot of things. Meanwhile, they leave this place fallow. Okay, and I want to use this opportunity to thank Vicente from Canada, who's organizing this great program and this great event to tackle the issues that are of our concern. Thank you very much and bless up, bro.
My name is Michael Batch. I teach at the University of the Western Cape. I teach literacy. And also I'm a DJ and a sound artist. So I work in the academic side and on the artistic side. Afrofuturism is a big part of my work as a DJ. The idea of the data thief has always been like the core of my crate digging, so to say. And I mean, this all relates to ideas that came from the diaspora. Such as hip-hop, for instance, is the framework I work in. So that sort of is like my Pan-African link in my work. Also, I teach literacy at the university, so a lot of the topics and the ideas that we discuss via speculative fiction, which I'm adding nicely into my curriculum to help students think about the world, about Africa, and so on. So yeah, in my teaching, I mean, I use hip-hop and Afrofuturism and speculative fiction as lenses and frameworks. And I think a lot of those ideas come from the diaspora. So it's Pan-African in itself, just the flow of those ideas. And I guess, yeah, I live in a city that's an anomaly in Africa, in that it's the one place that actually took in slaves from other parts of Africa and from the East. So it sort of has the a link to the Black Atlantic. Like a lot of the ships that were seized by the British patrols after the abolition of slavery or the slave trade, if they caught those ships on the Arab side, on the East Africa, or on the Atlantic side, they brought all those people to Cape Town. And they actually became slaves in the Cape. So the Cape is very interesting in that sense. So my work is within that context. So it's all Pan-African, like just by nature. With Marcus Garvey, it's like one of those ideas that came through Rastafarianism. And like my city has a big Rasta population. There's a place called Powell, just outside Cape Town. There's Rastas everywhere. I mean, you can't walk around Cape Town without Rastas. So Garvey's image is everywhere. I think a lot of people have seen Garvey's image in Cape Town and not even known it's him. You know, but we know the name and so on. So my introduction to Marcus Garvey is through Rastafarianism, through dub, also through Afro-futurism, and listening to reggae. I was born in Bulawayo, so I come from a reggae city. So yeah, these ideas were also just, I mean, Marcus's work and his ideas are just so strong. I mean, if you're listening to Bob Marley or Peter Tosh, it's like all the, you know. So yeah, I think just naturally, it's one of those ideologies and one of those ideological figures that are just so ubiquitous that we just caught that wave over here. But it's Rastafarianism that is sort of the bringer of Marcus Garvey's ideas. And actually, interestingly enough, I saw a newspaper clipping from the 1920s in Cape Town. And it's obviously a racist place at that, much more racist place at that time. And these seamen were bringing in magazines, publications, Marcus Garvey's publications. So there was a group of Garveyites in Cape Town in the 1920s already. And the newspaper people were asking, who are these people? You know, who's this Marcus Garvey guy? So yeah, so those ideas have been here for a long time. And I think, I mean, with our liberation movements also, it's just been one of those ideas and ideologies that have been core. If he was alive today, within this context, I think we'd have a bigger, more conversations around Pan-Africanism. I think in these parts, it's not something that's, you know, I think once independence happens in the African state, then the issues of the state become primary, you know. So with a figure like that around, there's still that, you know, there's still that figure of Pan-Africanism or someone that you can sort of latch onto. And the other thing was, what would he say about current South Africa? It's a difficult one. I mean, Black people in South Africa struggle. I mean, we don't have the economic means in our hands fully. And the government, you know, the Black government is also now, you know, brutalizing the people. Same thing that happened in a lot of African countries. We're not exempt from those issues. So I think Garvey would be somewhat disappointed, I guess. But once again, it's still, there's a lot of work to be done. So that dialogue would be very important.
We all have agency over what the future can bring. each of us individually can shape not only our personal future, but the future that we all live in. And the object of tonight is to get you to imagine. We want to get you to get out of the frame of reference of what you think your future might be and get as creative as possible. And we're going to see what we can build using that imagination and speculative thought. And we might come up with some cool stuff. So there are people who have tension cards. These tension cards are going to establish the parameters of our universe, and we're going to choose 2 cards. Let me see. Raise your hand if you have a tension card. All right, all the way back there.
More or less black feminist leadership.
More or less black feminist leadership. Who else has a tension card?
More or less social justice.
More or less social justice. So now that we have the parameters of our universe, we have created 4 multiverses that we can live in, all along the spectrum of those 2 choices. So now you guys in your chairs, you have inspiration cards. All right, let me see. What is your inspiration card?
Oh, I have fashion.
Okay, fashion. I like this one. I like fashion. What would be an article of fashion that would give you more black feminist leadership and more social justice? Yes.
I was just thinking about the notion of the invisibility cloak, but also like to have it be reversed. Like it could make you invisible, but it could also make you more visible, amplifying like what you normally.
So an amplification cloak. Go. A bodysuit. What does this bodysuit do? How about a bodysuit that repels emotional damage? Oh shit. Okay, here we go, y'all. Let's go. Let's go. So we have a bodysuit that when anything emotional tries to come and get you, it repels it. How could it be dystopian?
Dictators could use it.
That's what's
How so?
If you're not feeling emotional damage, then there's no consequence to society. So it feels like it could be a very negative thing to have a suit.
Right. So that could be dystopian. Okay, I need another inspiration, another object.
Inspiration, queer liberation.
Queer liberation. Object. Who has an object? Object. Here. Buttons.
You can press the button to change your gender.
A gender shifting button. Who's with that?
Yeah.
The button should be more like, you're more on the spectrum. It's more fluid.
Yeah,
I think we're like post-binary.
It's not binary.
So what if the button is just like, it just regulates you through your queer liberation? It's a dial. It's not a button, it's a dial. Right?
Research has shown that we can create alternative memories that heal trauma. And how do we heal the trauma of 400 years of oppression? How do we heal any personal trauma that we've had individually, collectively? And how do we create alternative memories of the future that pull us in and create resiliency for everybody? So we see this game as potentially available in schools, colleges. I played it with my students.
I like playing it with students also because, especially your students of your Afrofuturism course, they want to be creating their own cards and their own ideas that they're putting into the game. So it's not just using what we've given them, but adding to it.
Let it become a democracy of the future for everyone, available to everyone.
Peace, Hotep, blessed melanated rising, everybody. I am Pharaoh Hamid Freeman. I am the founder of the One Full Circle Melanated Community Network, also known as the OFC. So first and foremost, I want to give thanks to the Black Speculative Art Movement just for giving us this opportunity and for creating this amazing initiative. I also want to acknowledge our ancestors. I want to give thanks to the spirits of love, light, unity, and strength, as well as God, our creator, again, for just making it possible for us to be able to be here today and for blessing us in what we're currently doing and what we intend on continuing to do for our community. For those who do not know the OFC, we focus on bridging the gap entre la communauté anglophone et francophone noire. So for those who don't know, we're here to bridge the gap between the French and the English-speaking melanated community. But more specifically, we're really here to unite the community. And by uniting community, that allows us to create economic strength within our community, and then we use that economic strength to empower our community. Some of the initiatives that we've done, like we have a home, or that we currently do, we have a homeschooling network. We have an investment group that to date we've raised over $40,000 independently towards building our own Black Wall Street. We're credited for hosting the largest peaceful protest and march within North America. We had about 150,000 people come out. We are now a little bit more than 500 registered members and about 16,000 subscribers last we checked. So the network is here, alive and well, and we are growing. Basically, we're pretty much dispelling and smashing that whole myth that the Black community does not work together. We are very much here to set the example that we can work together. But how we've done it is by establishing a code of conduct and disciplining ourselves in the way that we function as a network. And we, as a network, offer a satisfaction guarantee to all our members. So when you come to the OFC and we refer you to a business or refer you to an individual, if the service is not stellar, you come back to us and we give you that guarantee, because it is our responsibility to make sure that we're maintaining a standard of excellence within our community. Also, some of the things that we've done is we've created a code of conduct within the network that has strengthened us and guided us since we've started. We're 10 years in this year. And just to let you guys know, so the code of conduct in terms of businesses, when businesses join the network, they're agreeing to provide good customer service and quality product. They're also understanding that they have to have a vision for longevity, because we're building for the next generation. And most important, they have to see the value in also supporting community. So as we spend money within these businesses, we're expecting that when we need a sponsor, we're going to go back to these same businesses and they'll be there to support. When we need a mentor, when we need a place to put a youth for a stage or an internship, they're willing to open their doors. So it's super important that these businesses understand that that's how the power of the collective works, the power of the one full circle, for lack of a better term. Also, the individuals who join our network also understand that as an individual, first, you're going to treat everybody like you want to be treated. That's a golden rule. Second, you also see the value in spending money within the community. And third, that should be first, but you see the value in building for the next generation. And because that is why we're coming together. It is to be able to create that foundation and create that bridge for the next community to be able to cross, and for the next community, for the next generation, to be able to build on. So that's basically what we do. And just understanding that we're currently a global network. So we're following in the Pan-African vision, the structure, because the fact that we're not just based within Montreal, Quebec. We're based here, but we just opened an office in Ghana. We have members across Canada. We have members in the United States, Atlanta, Washington, New York. We have members in Paris, in the UK, in Trinidad, in Haiti. So we're currently setting that example and building and bridging for that next generation. But most importantly, I have to acknowledge and give enough praise to Marcus Garvey, because the foundation of what we set up is based on his foundation, the example that he set of group economics. So we're here to just build that bridge, put people together, build for the next generation. But most importantly is people have to understand that value in coming together as a people in order to strengthen our next generation. So it has nothing to do with what we're doing for ourselves. We're coming together and working together to build for the next generation. And we're following that collective group economics model and vision that Garvey had. So we want to thank him again. We know that his spirit is alive and well and is inside and fueling a lot of us right now. So we want to just continue to give thanks and praise, and thank you guys for continuing what you're doing. Peace, love, Hotep.
My name is Louis March. I'm the founder of the Zero Gun Violence Movement. It's a collaboration of over 40 different organizations, agencies, programs across the city of Toronto, working towards a very bold and ambitious objective of zero gun violence in the city. My work in the community started in the 1970s under the stewardship of people like Dudley Laws and Charles Roach. We worked on a youth group. It was called BICAP, Black Youth Community Action Project. It was the youth extension of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. We did work focusing on youth issues. We did work, visiting inmates that were incarcerated. We did cultural work and we did educational work with a youth perspective. The work has taken place for nearly 50 years. And the thing that keeps everything together is the spirit of Pan-Africanism. This whole concept that a united, unified Africa is what we should be working towards. Not about assimilation, as Martin Luther King says, into a burning house. It's about what do we look for in the future, not only for ourselves, but for our children. And the whole concept of Pan-Africanism is a united Africa, working with all Africans at home and abroad, so that our young ones growing up know more about Africa than they know about Europe. In America, it was illegal for them to include Garvey material in the education, in the schooling system, right? He was seen as a terrorist. So, but his writings, his philosophies, his vision, we must start taking another look at it, because that is the template. That is the pathway with a clear plan as to how to achieve it. Garveyism was about self-sufficiency, self-determination, self-awareness, because he didn't want to build a dependency model on a system of government or a system of oppression that didn't recognize us for what we're about. So that was the importance of Pan-Africanism. But guess what? This was 100 years ago, and we're still struggling with understanding what he was about. The time is now. Let's do it.
Haye. Greetings in the Oromo, a Cushitic language from people from the earliest time. One of the things I've learned about from the Honourable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and one of the legacies that we celebrate today, is that he taught us that we did not have to fear the door of no return. I lived in Africa and found that the door of no return was already broken by Garveyites. They had reconnected with Africa all across the continent. They were able to do that at a time when we didn't have the internet. And so I know that we can do as well. We can go back. I have become Oromo, adopted by the Oromo, and therefore able not only to change my affiliation, but to broaden my name and give myself a name that is in the African tradition. So I have several African names. One is Menkaura, after the builder of the smallest pyramid. 2, Manga, after an ancient warrior from Mali. And 3, again, Guracha. Guracha meaning black. From the way the Oromo pray, when they pray to Waka Guracha, the great black god, when things are important. Garvey told us that we can use blackness as something to bring us together. We don't need to fear using the word. We don't need to fear a strong identity. We can use ritual. We can use reasoning. We can use rhythm. And we can therefore recreate for ourselves the societies that were broken. I found that in Senegal, the young people would go into the bush and they'd have a bush school every year, just for a short time. But that bush school could counter all the other kinds of training that they were getting, because they got other religions, they got other ideologies coming, and that's where we are today. We are not separate from the world. We have people who are leftists or Marxists or rightists and capitalists, people who embrace every religion. We are a global people, And the Africanization, they can turn every kind of belief into something that works in our interests. Shadow means free thinking. Thinking for yourself without foreign influence, any foreign influence. Doesn't mean you're not aware of it, it just means that you think through it and you bend it to your own use. Prince Uweka of Benin City, I remember saying to me, we have to take in all the learning we can get and we have to Africanize it. I know that we can do that. This talk that is no more than 4 minutes, but this is fine because in 4 years, Garvey was able to build a whole new world for African people. And he taught us above all, we should love, not trust too much, and we have always endured and we will endure. And therefore, he with confidence knew that even when he passed away, we would be carrying on. My book, Talking Shadow, gives us some of the ways in which we can carry on. Ashe, Ashe, thank you, Galatomi.
Hi, so thank you so much to the organisers for inviting me to be part of this really powerful space. My name is Esther Ojulari. I am a human rights defender and activist, originally from the UK, South Africa and Nigeria, and now based in Colombia, where I accompany the struggles of Afro-Colombian organisations, mainly on the Pacific coast, around human rights, land rights and reparation. I would say that Pan-Africanism is central to all of the work I do and all of the work and processes that I accompany. We understand the human rights violations inflicted upon black communities here in the Pacific, talking about massive widespread violations, forced displacement of entire communities, land dispossession, aggressions and assassinations of community leaders who stand up to defend the collective rights of their communities to territory, to autonomy, to cultural practices. All of those human rights violations are underpinned by the same colonial, capitalist, white supremacist system and ideologies that drive the oppression of our brothers and sisters, Africans and Afro-descendants around the world. We understand that many of the actors that are responsible for these human rights violations are transnational corporations, huge logging firms, mining companies, infrastructure companies, and these corporations are operating all around the region and often on the African continent and are responsible for the widespread human rights violations of Africans around the world in their quest for territorial control and control of resources. So we understand that our struggle for human rights is a struggle against an international system, and therefore our struggle itself must be international. We must link up and resist collectively with our brothers and sisters from around the world. One of the organizations that I work with, PCN, Proceso de Comunidades Negras, has as one of its guiding principles Black internationalism, and we do a lot of international solidarity work. We've been working recently a lot on the issue of reparation for the black population here in Colombia, and through that work we've linked up with members of the reparation movement in the Caribbean, so the CARICOM process, but also with the National African American Reparation Commission in the US as well. And that work has really enabled us to contextualize our own local struggle within the wider Pan-African and internationalist struggle. I'm also part of an international coalition of organizations for the implementation of the UN Decade on People of African Descent. And we understand through that beyond the policies and aims and objectives that have been agreed on by states for the decade, the decade itself is really an important platform for bringing together Africans from around the world so that we can collectively organize, communicate, collectively resist, collectively build and strategize, just as we did 20 years ago in the Durban process. So here in the region, we've been doing a lot of community education work around the decade and around international organizing, not only to bring those international processes to the local level, but also to make sure that local struggles are feeding into the international struggle as well. Another element of work that we've been doing here in Colombia is international delegations with human rights and black organisations and activists and students as well. We've had several delegations over the last few years organised by our sister organisation Afro Resistance based in the US, and those exchanges and delegations have enabled a meeting and a sharing between black activists, students, organisers from the US and here in Colombia. And my role in most of those processes have been around language interpretation and language translation. And I feel very strongly that through the violent process of colonialism and enslavement, we as a black people, we as an African people have been divided, not only along national lines, but also along linguistic lines. And that has often prevented us from really collectively organising internationally. So I feel that an important site of resistance for us is to break down linguistic barriers and to begin to reconnect again with our brothers and sisters who often speak different languages, often European languages, break down those barriers, reconnect, see ourselves again in each other and see ourselves in each other's struggles. So a large part of my Pan-Africanism is breaking down language barriers so that we can collectively resist as one global black family.
All right, so this is Okunini Obadele Kamban representing Abibitumi. That translates to Black Power in the Tree language, ABIBITUMI. You can check us out at abibitumi.com. You can also check out the apps that are available online. So I was given the question of how does your organization work, engage with Pan-Africanism and Afrofuturism as a tangible practice? One thing is by moving away from the organization model, which is in and of itself lending itself to what we refer to as fundamental alienation, hypocrisy as a way of life, the rhetorical ethic. What I mean by all of that is that when you're in an organization, you have a Eurasian structure, a non-African structure. You have a president, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer, and all these things. You go to any organization, it's all set up the same way. And this is something that's fundamentally anti-African at its very core. And when I say it lends itself to hypocrisy as a way of life, you know, if you're in an organization, most people who are members don't know the president, you know, on any type of authentic level, or where he or she lives, or, you know, have been to their house to see what their home is like or anything. Do they have a red, black, and green flag? Do they have a shrine to the ancestors, anything like this? That it's just like we assume that the person comes, gives a lecture, talks and says something cute, and then go home, and then, you know, we all do the same thing as members as well. Now, this is fundamentally different from what in an African context would be community building. And the core aspect of the community is that the members, the people who are part of the community, are not just interested in each other's life holistically, we're actually involved in it, you know, from growing food together, right, to, you know, socializing our children together. This is an African community, and it's very hard to see what an organization correlates to in any African classical or contemporary or traditional society. So that's one. And what we're doing in terms of the community building is starting from the homes, right? So we homeschool our children. We're going to come back to that point again. But there's a proverb in Tree that says, "Omando bois ifrifie." So that's to say, if the nation is going to fall, it comes from the house, from the home. And by the same token, you could say, that if it's going to stand firm, it's also coming from the homes. So when we have the home strong, then that makes the community strong. Then we can interconnect those communities, and that becomes a nation. And the work that we're doing is to restore Kemet and then also to restore Ma'at in the world. So these are very necessary tasks. So tangibly, what we do is we bring together those, and we have 15 lessons that we do with all the people who are part of it. They also go through guidelines that we all assent to. And then from there, we start making consensus and collective decisions in terms of monetarily, in terms of other things as well. So this is really something different in terms of community building that we really don't have time, because I have 5 minutes to go into, but that's just to give you a preview of it. So also I was asked, what are some of your best practices to help others actualize Pan-Africanism? That this is exactly what we do, is that we're taking other people in different locations. So we have those in Namibia, those who are in Ghana, those who are in Spain, those who are in the UKKK, those who are in the United States, those who are in Canada, all these places. And what we're doing is we're actually working on this community building model together, where there's a set structure, where there's a process that people go through. And with these structures, processes, and institutions, this is how we're able to, come together as communities. And now we're making collective and consensus decisions on that basis. We were also asked how we educate the next generation. Well, what I even do for a living, I teach at University of Ghana, and that's all about educating the next generation. I've done work teaching capoeira. This was in collaboration with UNESCO. Last year, we taught over 150 students capoeira in Accra. But more so, what we do is we make sure that our children are going to be able to carry things forward. So every morning we get up, we pour libations together. We sing songs in Chi, dealing with proverbs that we reflect on, that we discuss, things of that nature. From there, we go out and water the garden. From there, I have my oldest teaching the younger two capoeira, and then from there. So all of these things are set structures that we have within the household to make sure that the children are actually doing what it is that we would hope that they would do, rather than turning our children over to the wolves and hoping that they're raised in a way to be African. That's never going to work, and it never has worked. And in the lecture model, generally we're out trying to save the whole world giving lectures, but then when you see these luminary lecturers, keynote speakers for life, their children have nothing to do with the quote-unquote movement, with the quote-unquote struggle, with quote-unquote Pan-Africanism, because their parents taught them, go out, say whatever, sound cute, and then when you come home, it's something entirely different. So they see that hypocrisy. So these are some, just in a nutshell, some of the things that we're doing. If you're interested in learning more, come to abibitumi.com, abibitumi.com, and sign up there. You can also check out the apps, and we look forward to seeing you there at Abibitumi, where you don't have to worry about Facebook jail, you don't have to worry about copyright strikes. This is by Black people, for Black people exclusively, and that's what the original Pan-Africanism was all about. Madame Habibi Fahodi.
Greetings, my name is AC Mensah. I am a Canadian-born first generation of Ghanaian and Togolese descent. I am a choreographer, dancer, speaker, movement director, and more. And I have two companies, one called AC Mensah Creations, where I facilitate storytelling through movement, through my own one-of-a-kind creations, and as well as a Black Stars Collective, which is an Afro-fusion, Afrobeats dance company based here in Toronto, Canada. And who also, both companies have actually had the pleasure of touring internationally. Black Stars was in Ghana last year for the Year of Return Festival for Panafest in August, and performed on Emancipation Day at the Slave Castle. And as well as AC Mensah Creations, who has toured to the UK as well as to the US, speaking stories about Shadism, being of Ghanaian descent, and the issues of belonging when you are leaving the continent, and also finding your way when you are first generation born and trying to find your footing within the Ghanaian culture and context. Myself as a storyteller, as a griot, the conversations that I have, that I am able to facilitate through my company, AC Mensah Creations specifically, are all centered around community healing. And that to me is what a global vision of Pan-Africanism is really about for myself, and how I'm able to bring Dr. Garvey's message forward is through healing, being able to speak the stories of my community, being able to speak the stories of my ancestors, being able to go outwards from a very spiritual connection to be able to offer these conversations, so that way we as a community can heal. When you are tackling conversations that are not typically spoken of within our communities, when we have a chance to be able to really speak to the root of the issues, especially something surrounding Shadism, which is not often spoken about. It is very, very necessary that people can understand the complexity of these topics. and understanding also the responsibility that we have, that we uphold, and what we can do within our own hands to be able to make sure that these issues, these atrocities, these complicated things that people do not necessarily want to speak on can be spoken and most of all healed from. I have a TED Talk that I did last year in TEDx Toronto, which speaks about Shadism and the work surrounding one of my award nominated productions, Shades. And Shades is a piece that is spoken of through 7 individuals brave enough to be able to speak through their own trauma through movement. So my idea of what Pan-Africanism is as a black star line that runs literally through my veins as a Ghanaian descendant, Ghanaian and Togolese descendant child. It is very important that our stories do not die. As my parents immigrated here, it was very necessary for me to make sure that I could do what I could to continue the message, that I could do what I could to make sure that that message lived on and that it didn't die when they had left the continent. So for myself as a creator, I take the responsibility and honor it and give gratitude to my ancestors who were able to bring me into this space to be able to speak truth to the people and to facilitate something that is often overlooked and does not get enough attention, which is healing. So I give gratitude to today. Thank you so much for having me. BSAM International, Dr. Garvey, Dr. Garvey's son. I give gratitude to be able to celebrate your father on a day like today. Blessings. Afrofusion to me is a blend of traditional and contemporary African rhythms, specifically West African. I grew up doing dances from Ghana, and I also train in doing dances from Mali and Guinea, mixing it with samba, house, hip hop, contemporary. As I got into it, I realized the similarities of movement between all forms. And as an artist, when I started to really ask questions in terms of like what it means to be a Canadian with Ghanaian heritage, I started creating.
Greetings, Global Village. Thank you very much for having me for this very special day. My name is Chevy Eugene. I'm the Caribbean Ambassador for the Pan-African Council. The Pan-African Council is an action-oriented global leadership organization for visionary Pan-Africanists with the main goal of uniting Africa with her diasporas. The Pan-African Council, or as we call ourselves, PAC, is an umbrella organization which is composed of entrepreneurs, business leaders, global thinkers, government actors, academics, media experts, cultural ambassadors, and creatives. PAC at the moment has representatives in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Vincent, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Haiti, Suriname, and we have other members who are located, other Caribbean members who are located in the diaspora. So for example, some of our members are based in United Kingdom. At the moment, the Pan-African Council is focused on we are looking at 3 or 4 major themes for this coming year in response to the COVID-19 situation. So our regional community, and when I say regional community, I'm referring to the Caribbean region, are working on this document which focuses on climate justice, food security, arts and culture, youth and development. And some of our current projects are focused around young people. So in the next 2 months, we'll be doing our soft launch, which we'll have global partners global partners working with people in the Caribbean region with special emphasis on young people participating in the COVID-19 response. What we have witnessed as we've been doing this work in the Caribbean, there seems to be an intergenerational gap. So PAC is helping to, PAC is supporting and facilitating and minimizing that gap where the older generation could work with younger people. For example, the members I've the members I've highlighted across the Caribbean, everyone is under the age of 40 and is working with a set of skills that is crucial in pushing Pan-African thought, right? So this is what Pan-African Council is about. So thank you, Global Village, for having me. BSAM, continue to do amazing work. Once more, take care. Bye.
Salome Mbugua, and I was actually born in Kenya, and I've been living in Ireland for the last 26 years. So I came here as a young person in this country. I work with an organization called Akidwa, which is the African Women's Network in Ireland. I also have another organization for the African diaspora. And I might talk about both of them and at a different time, so, you know, all of them together. So talking about Marcus, Mosiah, you know, like when I read about him, because, you know, it wasn't the time that he lived, that I lived actually, and I really admired his courage and strength, you know, because he seemed to have fought a lot, you know, based on what I read about him and what I hear about him. And even for the fact that, you know, he had been very much inspired by the movement of the Irish, you know, in particular the Irish people here in Ireland, the Irish movement for the independence, you know, from the English, although the Irish people don't see it as they were colonized, you know, so they don't see it that way, and you're still actually struggling with Northern Ireland, which is not very far away from me. It's actually 2 hours drive from where I am. And reading about him and hearing about him and seeing this courage that he had, and not only thinking about, you know, freedom of Africa, you know, but also, you know, all the, you know, Africans and people of African descent living around the world. It actually resonates with what we do and what I do with my organization. So I completely identified so much with him. And so myself, you know, I arrived in Ireland, like I said, back in 1994. And at the time when I arrived here, you know, people looked at me as a novelty, but not a novelty, and this is the Irish people, not novelty in a good way. So it has been very, very difficult working here. We've been trying to challenge these issues. And now I mentioned about the decade of people of African descent. What it had asked the government, you know, because it was launched by the United Nations in 2014, December 2014. The decade was supposed to start from 2015 and it finishes in 2024. All the nations were asked, based on the declaration which acknowledges the impact of colonizations and slave trade, how it impacts on people of African descent, to help reduce these inequalities that are experienced by the Africans. And it's actually recommended 3 key areas. So there's one area which is the recognition. So recognizing the African culture, good things that are from the continent itself, for example, and from African people, because we are here, we are no longer in the continent. And we also have people in America who are not, Canada and Australia and all that, who are not in Africa continent itself. And so it's needed to recognize their culture and to help to promote it at the same time. They also spoke about justice, which is the second objective. And this second area is that, you know, justice, most of the people, and we see it here as well in Ireland, when young people are, you know, going on with their work, or if any of the African person are caught driving without license or that, they're treated very badly and harshly as well. So the law is not very fair on Africans and people of African descent. And so it's needed to look into justice and also to look into laws and policies that we have in place. I spoke about issues of racism and discrimination, which sometimes it's actually the physical abuse and physical attack. And what we look for is for the state to develop law or policies that will help people, that will protect people, that they are not actually affected by these issues. The Africa Diaspora Development Organization is mainly looking into the work in Africa. And, you know, we call it Wezesha. Wezesha is a Swahili word which is enabling. And the whole idea behind this organization is that our continent has been so much damaged by the Western world. The Western world have actually developed a dependency model for many countries in our continent, where they just want to provide and dish things, you know, small things, maybe seeds, maybe clothes, few things here and there, and they do that maybe every year they go do that, or every month they are trying to give these small things. But actually our model, which is the enabling one, says that, people already have resources within themselves. And this is actually how we've been working. We've been working with, for example, 2 groups in Kenya and 2 groups in Democratic Republic of Congo. Those groups have been able to save money. The one group in Kenya, they live in the slums of Kenya. It's a small slums. But our discussion with them was that, would you like your future generations to grow up in these slums? And they don't want that. They want actually to start rethinking on how they can relocate to rural areas where they can do farming, they can have good houses, and they have bought land, so with their own resources. And then we have the one in Congo where people are actually running small enterprises. They're building their own local health rather than waiting for the medical mobile clinics to come and supply them from the Western world, bringing all these things. So they're organizing themselves in some way. And this is the model that we want to preach, that everybody have some resources within themselves. Even if you have $10, you can save $2 and use $8. And so there's a way that we work with them to motivate them. And for sure, it's working. So it will be very important to have other people actually connecting with Wezesha, for example. Our website is www.wezeshadada.com. So www.wezeshadada.com. You can find us actually there. We are also hoping to put up a discussion, on the Africans for the African continent, talking about African rising for the African continent, for the Africans who are in diaspora or who are outside. And this will be all of us, Africans and people of African descent at the same time. So for KIDWA, which is the African Women's Network in Ireland, we have a lot of issues. We have a lot of women who have come from armed conflict countries. Some of them have spent many years in refugee camps, 14 years, 15 years in refugee camps before they came here. And actually, so you'll find that they do not have the skills or language, so they can never actually participate in the labor market as per se. So we try also to work with them and support them. We are creating a small market on our website, for example, for those who cannot be able to read or write, that they can do things that they can do with their hands. So if they have skills, that they can work from their skills. So you can also see our work on the website. So it's www.akidwa.ie. So it's www.akidwa.ie. So those are the 2 organizations, and you will have also our emails and everything on the website, so people can reach us that way. Even though Ireland is a small country, we are less than 5 million, almost 5 million, and 12% of that are people from other countries. But we are yet to embrace this diversity and encourage it. But in all that, based on the researches that we have, the people who serve us most are the people of African descent. So you can imagine, even for me to run an organization and to do any work, I have to be doing it maybe 10 times better to prove that I am capable, because they still look at us less. So it's a journey, and going back to Marcus and the determination of Marcus and his strength and courage, that would motivate people like me to keep on doing what we do. And I think, when we do our level best, then even if our time comes, then we have done our level best, and other people will continue to do good. So that's all I can say for now.
This Flag of Mine, written by Amy Garvey, performed by Queen Kukoyi. Regardless of what's told of it, here's to this flag of mine, the red, black, and green hopes in its futures bright Africa has seen. Here's to the red of it, great nations shall know of it, in time to come red blood shall flow of it, historians shall write of it, great flag of mine. Here's to the black of it, 400 million back of it, whose destiny depends on it, the red, black, and green of it, oh, flag of mine. Here's to the green of it, young men shall dream of it, face shot and shells of it, waving so high. Here's to the whole of it, bright colors and pole of it, Pleased is my soul with it, regardless of what's told of it. Thank God for giving it. Great flag of mine. Great flag of mine.
At this time, we're going to go into some deeper discussions and just go into some deeper understandings. And at this moment, I want to open the floor up to Peachtree, who's going to speak about some ITAD things.
Greetings, everybody. Yes, my name is Peachtree. I'm in Toronto, but my navel string is in Trinidad and Tobago. I am a Rastafari Oman. Yes, from the beginning of time. And, you know, a lot of my works is circled around food security, but mostly around Black food sovereignty and how we are connecting to land, how we are working with our plant family and having some deeper understanding with our plant family, but also how that is a tradition that has traveled with us for a very long time. And I am currently working on a few projects. So I work first and foremost on a project called Clouds and Roots with a man by the name of J-Wise. It is a project that we started to promote in particularly cannabis when we talk about Rastafari and our insertion in this new field that's being created worldwide, and really to take the atrocities that happen to Black bodies and African bodies and turn it onto its head and really start talking about how we can start talking about community economics, Black business creation, and really getting ourselves into this industry, because this is an industry in particular that Rastafari has paid a huge price for and continues to do so. Like I do say, anywhere I go in the world, people offer me this plant before they offer me a glass of water or a place to sit. So there's realities of who has held the charge of this plant. So that's one project, very much putting a very particular spin and really connecting it to our music and our arts and our culture, this plant, and really showing how this plant has moved. And also, I'm currently working on a project that I'm a little bit in the background of called the Black Women Agricultural Freedom Fund. It was really built off of working within food security spaces here in Toronto and understanding that as our community, as African people here, that we really need to start working towards land and building businesses that are attached to land and really revisiting some of many of the agricultural things that this world knows that comes out of my Oromo nation, my Kushite family, in terms of leading the charge in agriculture. So please, by all means, I would love folks to check me out on any one of those platforms. On Instagrams, I am on Clouds and Roots with the Ganja Diplomats. On Instagram, you can find us at the Black Women Freedom Fund. And you can also find us on our website there too, Black Women Freedom Fund. And we are currently circulating a lot of information around for Black women, for deities, for people, for energies that have brought forward land work here across the world. And those people are Atete, which is a fertility goddess coming out of the Oromo Kushite family, Nanny of the Maroons coming from Jamaica, Harriet Tubman here, and as well Wangari coming out of Kenya. So we are very much pushing this conversation, myself and another young woman, about what land really looks like and what food sovereignty, Black food sovereignty looks like for us as we move around the world. On our Instagram, we will very shortly start hosting many products coming in particularly out of Oromia with some of the farmers that we've connected with there. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Sistrin, and for the words, sound, and power.
Rastafari, Empress Men and Works, all the time.
So at this time, we want to pass it over to African Food Basket. Are they available? We are here.
My name is Anan Laluli. I'm with the African Food Basket, and I'm honored to be speaking after the great Peachtree. Give thanks for those works. Much love and much blessings and respect representing the T-Dot. We've been around for 25 years, and the focus of the institution is looking at Black food sovereignty in Canada. Over the last 25 years, we were pushing the concept of food justice, making sure that folks in Canada, specifically Toronto, look at how race interact with the sustainable food system movement that's happening in Canada. So we've been started as a Black food distribution outlet, as a community cooperative. We did that for a number of years, and in between those years, we started looking at urban agriculture, getting involved in establishing community gardens, specifically in the lower income areas of Toronto. And I must say, a lot of Black folks live in the lower income areas of Toronto. So when you want to find a Black community, you know, you got to go, because that's where they put us. So it's how we're going to get ourselves out of those areas and how we can be sovereign and self-sufficient in not just food, but housing and every aspect of our lives. It's how we work together collectively. That is the important challenge that we have. We have just what it takes, you know, and it's sad to say that the great prophet Marcus Garvey said, we never know ourselves until we're back against the wall. We don't need to be back against the wall. We need to organize now. We need to make sure we put our time to work collectively. And that's another big challenge for us, how we could work together, how we could work collectively as one people. We don't really know the value of our strength because we don't humble ourselves enough to say, okay, let's see how we could do this together, and sacrifice and volunteer and make the commitment to do what we need to do to be a self-sufficient people. So right about now, we started a program last year looking to see how we could mobilize folks like my dear sister Peachtree and the other Black folks in the city so we could sit down together and plan to go forward with a Black food sovereignty agenda and see how we could influence the folks in Toronto for us, and then the rest of Canada, and hopefully we influence the rest of the world in making sure that we look at food sovereignty as a key, most important area of our development. Food and land, you can't ask for nothing more that is more important than food and land. Because with those two areas of interest, we could live. We don't need nothing else. So it's very much important all over the world. We listen to the word of Marcus Garvey, of being self-sufficient. One thing I know I learned from the great Marcus Garvey is the ideal of a cooperative, because people of African descent, we don't know anything about capitalism. We just fooling ourselves with capitalism. We just joking, running around thinking that we could be capitalists. But our DNA is a cooperative people. That's why you see we have round circle villages. Because we is about the circle, we about the collective security. Keep thanks, King Rastafari, one love. No, there's a lot of voices need to be spoken, so I don't want to take up more time, but I could talk whole afternoon because this is a blessed gathering, and I give thanks for all the ones around the world who are just doing their thing and raising the Black voice so we could make Mama Africa proud. One perfect love.
Give thanks, Brother Elder Zola, for being here. Right now, we're going to be hearing from one of our major sponsors, GACN, and Brother Simba, who's representing GACN, who helped to make many connections for us.
Thank you very much, Brother Quentin, and the whole team. You guys are doing a great service to humanity, because we are, as Bob Marley said, we are the roots. And until we are completely nurtured and healed, the rest of humanity is in peril, right? I just wanted to take this opportunity also to acknowledge Marcus Garvey's earth song by saying that this ancestor has done so much for the upliftment of human civilization. He was an excellent statesman. Many of you may not know this. However, Marcus Garvey had his 7th and 8th final UNIA conventions in Toronto, Canada. He left a lasting legacy here for those of us who are on the line from Toronto. Basically, the burning embers are here, and it's up to us to rekindle that flame here. Toronto is called the meeting place, and the United Nations recognizes it as the most multiculturally diverse city on planet Earth. Ironically, all of Africa is here, and all of the Caribbean is also here in Toronto. So we have a very special purpose, I believe, in regards to Afro-futurism, in regards to Garvey's vision of the future, right? I just wanted to take this opportunity, really, in the limited time I have, to really get to the heart of the matter, right? We all know, we should all be aware that on August 20th, 1619, was the first account of all people of African heritage being sold into chattel slavery in North America, in Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia. Now, August 20, 2019 ended the 400 years. Ironically, in the book of Genesis, chapter 15, verse 13 and 14, there was a covenant that Almighty God made with his people. And he said, "Know for certain your descendants will be enslaved and mistreated in a land not their own for 400 years. After which I will come and judge the nations they serve and punish them, and your descendants will be left with great abundance." Genesis 15, 13, and 14. In my discussion with Brother Quentin and others, I've always spoken of prophecy being an integral outcome of African or Afrofuturism, because prophecy speaks to the future. And obviously, this was a prophetic message indicating that we were to be enslaved for 400 years. Marcus Garvey and the Second UNIA Convention in 1921 said that racial prejudice is going to be the fall of this civilization. And he warned white folks. He says, Almighty God did not submit people to you perpetually. There came an end to their dominion. They still have yet to apologize. And he basically said they are feeling their own doom because the universe, Almighty God, will not allow the injustice to go on perpetually. So I feel that Garvey's message to the world was to restore the relationship amongst humanity, to restore that breach which continues to go on today, that has man facilitating injustice against man, right? And his son, Dr. Julius Garvey, at the beginning of our conversation spoke about, this conference spoke about philosophy, cosmology, and spirituality. And the heart of the matter I want to get to is this. When Garvey spoke about one God, he was speaking about the divine unity that coexists within each and every one of us. And so today his son said, we need to bring to the world our divinity, manifest our divinity. And I believe that's the message I just want to remind us of all today, is that we are human beings, yes, spiritual beings, living a human experience. Essentially, as Marcus Garvey and others have said, we are divine by nature. I thank you for the time that I had to share with the collective and the group today, and I look forward to building on this conversation and this dialogue.
Good, thanks, good, thanks. And without further ado, I want to pass it on to my BSAM colleagues.
Thank you, Quentin. It's really just a chance for us to come together to kind of understand, highlight initiatives, and talk about next steps. So I guess, I'm a representative for the Houston chapter, so let me just go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Schetauna Powell, and I'm part of a group of businesses here in Houston, Texas that help organize the Black Speculative Arts Movement Conference. So that includes Tiffany, Rauchan, who is also on, and Mary Teresa, who, she had to leave a little bit early. But the three of us together have been focusing on art and education and how to utilize the Black Speculative Arts Movement in order to teach African cosmology and African philosophy through art to our participants.
I'm just in awe of all of the participation, all the love today, all the Q&A, all the chat, every panelist. every live speaker. All the videos were phenomenal. This is, just like Dr. Anderson said, a most auspicious occasion, and I am so delighted to be a part. What I've heard as a common thread from everyone is that we must move forward, and a lot of us are already doing so. I encourage us to continue to seek a deeper understanding of what it really means for us to come together. BSAM Canada is doing some amazing work with addressing mental health and how it is the center of everything that has ever divided us from ourselves and from others. And so it really is an opportunity to continue the conversation and to find out from all of you who are watching if there are projects that you are working on that you believe you'd like spotlighted in some way. But I just wanted to say that BSAM Houston is doing big things this year in arts education, specifically where it centers literacy development and the African philosophy, the Pan-African philosophy. Literacy and being able to read functionally for every child of color, if you will, is my goal, because it's a direct connection to consciousness. And so we're doing everything we can to use viable streams of expression to make our children, to help them feel whole. There's so much going on when we talk about food and function and fitness and access and equity. We're still having basic conversations about, just basic needs. And so when we come together and we say, okay, so here's how we're addressing it with ourselves and in our families and in our, the overflow gets to our community, that doesn't leave anybody out. We're not stretched too thin. We're not taxing each other and the people that we love. We're doing it as a true community. So
I agree.
Thank you.
To kind of pick up on the points that Tiffany was making, what are we doing as a collective? I remember when I was helping, edit the video that we just watched and putting it all together, the question that came to my head for some of the videos is, who are we without our universities? Do our universities, are we nothing without, how are we helping our communities? Because we can talk about advanced concepts within Afrofuturism or Black speculative arts, but a lot of us need to go and center ourselves within African cosmology first before we can even start to talk about what we want for the future. We can't go forward until we go back. That's Sankofa.
I also wanted to talk about the Black Book as an institution. I think that's a part of some of the things that I heard missing around our knowledge as an actual physical institution that is moving in different spaces with us. I here in Toronto do a lot of work with Frontline Books coming out of Chicago with Raseku Sankara Tafari. And that's a lot of the conversation, is that many of the things that we build come through the institution of our knowledge, and in particular, the institution of the Black Book, and that as they start to attack physical spaces, that is really where the heartbeat has been of where we have gathered, connected, built, and what we're building. It's in these spaces where I get to sit on a phone with an elder and hear somebody ask me a mind-blowing question like, can you call a company to talk about us buying a ship, And I think that we forget the importance of these spaces and how much work those spaces have done to continue this creation, and how important, as you mentioned, the institutions and the universities, I felt this pull in between myself, oh, university, how do I feel about this? I don't know. And then I also went back to while we are doing this work, the attachment of that Black, as you said, this energy that we have to plug into as we're venturing into these institutions that really pull us as African bodies in different spaces and in different ways. But by keeping ourselves connected to that institution of knowledge, that the caring of what the Black Book has done for us for such a long time, really keeps us connected to each other in a very particular way.
Yeah. And I really like how there is a common conversation among all of our individual inputs, which is we really need to return back to the philosophy
We really need to return back to the cosmology and the ontology. And like Tiffany was saying, really push the epistemology. We need to make sure that people are reading the right books, because like Dr. Anderson, he was saying there are lots of white people out there looking to co-opt Afrofuturism. And as long as the experts in the field, and right now, we are the experts, like looking around, looking at who we're talking to, we're on a Zoom meeting for the world. We're the world right now. We are the experts. And right now, Afrofuturism is the vehicle by which we can continue the work of Garvey, where we can continue the work of all of our Black radical liberation movements. We're talking about really reigniting the Black imagination, and in a way that is really well felt, right? I think it's like Audre Lorde said, there's not really any new information. There's just a new way of making the information felt. And right now we're in a moment where all the things of our ancestors, all of the concepts that we have been using to survive in the new world are being felt in a new way. And just like Dr. Julius Garvey had mentioned in his keynote, we're at a time where the white world is in chaos. And when the white world is in chaos, it is a chance for all of our other, indigenous and native groups to really come together and to grow and flourish without the boot of white supremacy on our necks, because they're too busy dealing with their own stuff, right? If one of my students said, I want to be a part of the Black speculative arts movement, I want my stuff to be able to go towards the Black political imagination, what are we doing? So I'll open that up and I'll stop.
Hey, I wanted to speak on that. Hi. That's a wonderful question. It's an honor to be here with everyone today. Greeting you from Memphis, Tennessee. This is BSAM Memphis. I'm Sheree Renée Thomas, writer and editor, did the Dark Matter books and 9 Bar Blues. And I would like to say that we're actually not officially a part of the Academy. So we can most definitely talk about how do you do grassroots organizing without writing grants, specifically to university committees and such, because we are all sidewalk university for the most part. One of our biggest programs that we have, and the one that we're most excited about right now, is Neighborhood Heroes. That comes completely out of the community. Danny and Daryl Jerry is the one who conceived this ideal. Danielle L. Littlefield, who is a professor at a HBCU at Rusk College, also came and brought in all of her family and all of her art students and everyone else from the community, from Mississippi and from Memphis, to come and support this effort. It's a program where we're looking at increasing literacy and a love for learning and a love for reading with young people. And we want to use very exciting texts to do that, works that may not be taught in the curriculum that they have in schools. Most of our students are in public schools here in Memphis, which are completely underfunded, completely. And like ever since the desegregation movement, integration started, Christian schools were created right those years so that white students would not have to go to class with Black students. And that's the legacy that we're dealing with today. Our city has spent almost $0 talking to help with students. So we're using science fiction texts written by writers of color, particularly Black writers, and I like to say Black instead of BIPOC when I mean Black people. Black works by Black writers that are YA books, as well as graphic novels, comics, to try to see themselves as everyday heroes in America, in Memphis. And so we're using costumes and all of the art to have them do role play and also do literacy exercises. So that's one way that we're working here in Memphis.
Thank you. I actually wanted to thank you for the question. And before you ask the question, I was actually thinking about that, right? Even when you speak about universities, it seems like we're very attached to university. But even before I go into sharing my thoughts on the work that I partake in, I just wanted to make a small correction in as one of the featured speakers, and it had Dr. Chevy Eugene. So I just want to correct, I'm not a doctor as yet, I'm ABD, I'm a PhD candidate. That's a small little correction. And moving forward, when you talk about the relationship with grassroots and the institution, and institution being academia, I think of Walter Rodney. So even when you talk about Marcus Garvey and the work of Marcus Garvey, Walter Rodney, what he pushed is that the intellectuals, those in the institutions, have a particular role to play. And one of that being guerrilla intellectuals, in the sense that you're forming some form of class suicide to work with people on the ground, and you're learning from people on the ground, right? So we have a responsibility in the sense of when we are located in the institution, but the conversation must keep going because we learn from the people, we learn from the ground. Knowledge is, in particular, is produced from the ground. We could talk about theories and all those things, and especially me being in a program that is grounded in political thought. But then what does that look like in practice? And that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask, but I'll give an example. So for me, one of the organizations I'm part of is Pan-African Council. So I'm the Caribbean ambassador of that. And what we're doing, we actually on the ground, not dependent on institutions or the government. So we have individuals who are entrepreneurs, people who are artists, and we think of creative ways. We think of creative ways for us to fund ourselves, right? We get business person, reach out to them, we reach out to them, we think of different streams to bring in money for us to be sustainable, so we're not dependent on what we could do or what we could say when we're mobilizing and working across people, with people in the Caribbean. So even, I wanted to ask that question too to the panelists, is like, when we talk about Garvey and his work, and we look at the political climate right now, we talk about the Black radical imagination, how does our current environment stimulate us to think of Garvey work in moving forward, right? And for me, that's what I would love to hear some of the panelists speak about, so how we could work together. And I think, Sister Powell, you asked that as well. How do we work together in a real way? Like, what does that look like in action beyond the conversation? I mean, the conversation is important. We start with the conversation, but what does that look like in practice? Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Queen Kukoyi. I wanted to, I guess, briefly answer that question because we're coming down to the wire now. I want to shout everybody out who's here. Thank you so much for coming. BSAM Canada here. I guess I can answer that question in two parts. Choosing, I guess, maybe let's say two intersections, because we know we are multi-layered. We meet in all different places in our identities. So I'm going to speak as a mother and as like a community artivist, I guess. First thing I would say is that we have to break out of this idea, if a lot of us haven't already, of, not listening to our children, right? Not feeling like we can learn from them as well. I mean, I've had so many conversations with my daughter, who's actually, she's an Afro-futurist as well, and she was featured as the youngest Afro-futurist. She's a digital artist as well. Sorry, I'm gonna start bigging her up. But yeah, like just having conversations with our kids about our history and our future, and having like parenting through a Sankofa lens. That's one way we can put this into practice. And in terms of community, I think that one, it begins with us understanding that there are various intersections of the Black identity. We are the most diverse, we are the most diverse. And playing to people's strengths. So if we know, we're doing community economics, we're gonna incorporate everybody from the most amount of understanding to the least amount of understanding, and have people work together so that you're getting, new inputs and inputs that are already working, and you know what I mean? So that's my 2 cents. Bye, everybody.
I just wanted to say that it's also important that we connect with our elders in that space, at least in my opinion, that we create that partnership, that, a lot of the brilliance that people see from me comes from my ability to sit with elders that didn't just create some kind of thing for me to do, but really listen to what I was feeling, listen to what was happening around me, and really help me bridge some of the things that I didn't see coming from the past, but also trying to bring in something that I saw coming from the future. And I'm a mom and I work in the exact same way with my daughter, you know, really making sure that she has taught me so much. And I remind parents all the time that we should always listen to our children. They actually are the reflection of us, that clear looking glass of water, you know. But definitely the partnering of elders in that space really creates a grounding that has proved to be extremely important for me.
That's also the reason why I wanted to have this conversation to be cross-generational. You know, we had many elders speak, from, of course, Dr. Julius Garvey to Clemens Manga Marshall, you know, but then we had someone as young as 13, you know, with Amirah speaking. And then, you know, I'm kind of the youngest in the BSAM group, and which is weird to say, but, you know, 'cause I feel like I'm an old soul and things. But
You could put us
one
on
of the key things for BSAM Canada is having that cross-generation conversation and learning and mentorship. You know, we focus on 3 things: project, programs, and partnerships, you know. And so that can only happen when we learn about those who came before us, and then we're inspiring those who are coming after us.
I'm just gonna jump in with a thought myself. I feel like every generation is tasked with a goal for ourselves in our community. Like the goal of my elders and the goal of my parents was just to get to Canada. Where for me, I felt like growing up, my task was to be able to figure out how I can bring longevity to the name of my parents, to be able to make sure that we are passing down, I'm passing down something to my children, because not growing up in Ghana. Oh, hi, my name is AC. Hello, everybody. Greetings, everybody. Dancer, choreographer, that's who I am. And so just the need to be able to know that I am bringing something forward. And I think that as somebody that works specifically in the arts, and that is about creating something that is tangible, something that people can take home with, something that people can have to heal from, I think it's also very necessary as we speak within these academic spaces that we are also focusing on the arts as well. And that is something that is not forgotten, because, you know, to know about the times that we are in, you look to the artists, you look to the people that were able to leave a legacy that speaks to the times that we are in right now. So I think it's very necessary that we see how our elders are inspiring us. We see how our children are inspiring us. We see how the ancestors are working through us to continue to be a channel. Because our presence here, even though it may, whatever time that we do have, we are here to leave an impact. And this time, this pause time within the world is allowing us all to be able to come united in a conversation to say, how can we leave an impact? What do we need to do within this generation to make sure that the next one that comes is able to continue with the torch and keep running?
I'm Danielle Littlefield. I wanted to kind of respond directly to what was just said about building up the arts. I work at an HBCU in Mississippi at Russ College. And even though I think I had access to applying for grants and kind of working within the university system, it wasn't something I was really very comfortable doing. So what we've been doing, I'm sorry, I'm also a part of BSAM Memphis. What we've been doing is building a program there in the arts and literature that is centered on what we call an Afro-Mississippi concept. And the Afro-Mississippi concept is something that centers our work, which will be in performance, fine arts, and creative writing, in the diasporic tradition, but also attempts to kind of ground us in the history we have here on the land that we're on. Right, so we are building fine arts program, performance art should be coming next year, all centered in Black theater. Our collective is called Earthseed, which is kind of centered on Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower and the Earthseed concept that she puts forth in that book. This will kind of be that, and the Afro-Mississippi concept will be kind of the two components that are supposed to ground this program for students. So I'm really excited about that. We have a lot of HBCU students that come to HBCUs in the South from places up north, right, in America, who mostly left in families after the migration. And so what we've been seeing in the last decade is a large return of a lot of Black Americans who fled the South a lot of their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren have started to return to the South. And we have like the highest population of Black Americans in the South, again, since before slavery. So we're kind of capitalizing on that moment. I think now is obviously a great time to do that. And I think that's it for what I wanted to add to the conversation.
Hi, hello, hi. Wow, this has been absolutely amazing. And as we take today to honor the work and the memory of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, one can only really just mourn the loss of another important visionary and philosopher, just with an energy so great that his spirit still reverberates across so many lives still to today. For him to have such a great impact that we take time out to honor him with our platform, the Black Speculative Arts Movement. It's major. My name is Daisha Polk. Okay. It's okay. It's Daisha Polk, and I'm an organizer for the local St. Louis chapter of the BSAM movement. But speaking of monumental energies reverberating across lives, it was the Ferguson uprising and the murder of Michael Brown that really brought me to this work and wanting to create legacy. I am the former chairwoman of the New Black Panther Party, the St. Louis chapter. Through that organization, I ran several community initiatives. So I've always been a grassroots organizer. I did take a little college, but kind of got into the humdrum. I'm a mom as well. So kind of coming from that background, I knew that there was something more that I wanted to do. I knew that there was a greater purpose, if you will. And it was in 2013 that I kind of shifted gears more on community building, which is what even brought me to the legacy of Marcus Garvey. But continue to speak on the party. I joined the party initially because I knew political education, of course, coming from school systems, public systems, there's so much that we don't learn and so much that we don't get exposed to, which is what makes an organization like BSAM so important, because it has the ability to uplift so many people from across the diaspora, to bring their art and their voices and their communities and their historical anthologies and just so much richness and wealth that is stored in BSAM. So I'm so looking forward to continuing the conversation. But it was, again, the political piece, and this is why Marcus was so important, that really intrigued me, and then also leading to protection, because one thing that was major, if anyone ever refers to the Black Panther Party, that's something that they were much well known for, and having those rights and being able to protect those rights is imperative. So during that time, health and wellness also became a common thread. When you're organizing grassroots, you do have that kind of front line in the trenches ability to get constant and instant feedback from the community you serve. And so a lot of my initiatives and programmatics came into play dealing with community issues, homelessness, food deserts, also creating a tribute to the memory of Dr. Sebi. I spearheaded a symposium called the Dr. Sebi Naturopathic Symposium in order to start to introduce people within our communities to holistic practitioners, chiropractors, people who just use other different modalities, preventative maintenance. I mean, when we started the live participation part, I didn't know how I really wanted to approach it. But I do know the value of living and breathing and thinking in a futures manner. And one thing that Garvey has always posed for me is, how do I continue on a legacy as great? How do I continue to make an impact? And I think that it is through work like organizing with BSAM and continuing to connect with our global family that is really going to overarch and maintain this beautiful web and weave that we have created with, again, the Black Speculative Arts Movement group. So I am a Powernomics certified, and if you are familiar with what Powernomics is, it is the thought tank of Claude Anderson, who is an economist and definitely a staunch follower of the legacy of Marcus Garvey. I've always, again, just tried to gear my participation and any of my input in any way to impact my community when it comes to things that I think are most valuable. And of course, the youth is what we have left is the youth. And so to continue to pour into that, in the last 3 years, I have reached over 5,000 children through a career day school tour that spanned three years, all the while still organizing this amazing local BSAM event that we host here. My aspect of the organizing always centers around film, performance, art-based performance, and workshops that are geared towards music. I guess I'll kind of wrap up my spiel. I'm better known as Energy because I'm in everything, everywhere. I try to continue to do as much as I can because every day is not guaranteed. And I'd rather, there's a thing that we talk about being a part of the Black Panther Party is not leaving your post until you're properly relieved. And since I've taken up the mantle and I've decided to bear the torch, it is absolutely imperative that I continue to do everything, even on a daily basis, that helps me continue to emphasize and be that, I guess, that kind of example that people need to see more often that exists within our own communities. But I think that lastly, if I had to add anything to how we can strategically maneuver as a group and as a team and as a collective, as a part of the Black Speculative movement, as futurists, as people who see themselves as a part of this conversation and as a part of great work that we're allowed to lead, get ourselves together in one place and build that which we want to see. But yes, that's my spiel, my piece. And thank you all again. This has been amazing.
Two things that I think that tie these concepts of Pan-Africanism and Afrofuturism together. I think from the era of Garvey, it was different to a certain extent than what we have happening now. When Garvey and the UNIA got started, there were only two nominally free African countries. That was Liberia and Ethiopia. Garvey, Du Bois, and Kwame Nkrumah, and a lot of the elders that founded the Pan-Africanist movement, Blyden, Casely Hayford, and other great thinkers, they could not have conceived of Barack Obama or the possibility of a Black woman vice president, Kamala Harris. And so the thing is, a lot of our history, the last 500 years, we could conceive of the oppressor being in charge, but we could never conceive of a traitor being in charge. One of the things that led to the formation of the Black Speculative Art Movement, the ideas, when I started thinking about the manifesto and some other things that some of you all have read my works, the period for me came out of when Barack Obama and the United States government bombed Libya. And that's when I knew that having a black face in charge does not necessarily mean freedom. It can mean more oppression. The same way Black people in Africa know that a black face can lead oppression here in the diaspora, a black face can also be the oppressor. We had a black president in charge when Ferguson went down and Michael Brown happened and was killed, and the unrest going on. So I think what I like about the younger generation now, and I like their feistiness in terms of whether it's a black school teacher or a black person, a black face can also be your oppressor. A black oppressor can also be in your own household. And to that end, a couple of the concepts I wanted to talk about in closing today, in the words of another of my favorite brothers from the Caribbean, Stokely Carmichael, we still need black power. Now, to pursue that end, because I like my boy Chevy, that I'm glad I saw him talk today. Chevy, when I talk about Pan-Africanism, I'm not even talking about an elite Pan-Africanism. We need a Pan-Africanism that is informed by the ideas of people like Walter Rodney, or even more Padmore, a grassroots Pan-Africanism. Because there are African elites that call for Pan-Africanism now, but they still want to be tied into a certain type of capitalism, or necro-capitalism, which means we got to die in the service of the white elite capitalist model. And when I say Afrofuturism 2.0, we're talking about a transnational Pan-African project that's going to look linguistically different, and it's going to look locally different depending on which region it is. And so one of the things about these ideas, BSAM along with his partners, we need to pursue a paradigm to transmute these ideas in our works and our theories and praxis to create a new Black international for this century to promote these ideas. There are certain 2 or 3 challenges we really got to focus on. They're going to be dealing with the concept of the economic reset and magic money, meaning the West is going to continue money and fiat currency while the rest of the Black global South will not be able to. in the wake of this post-pandemic, you're going to see a big wave of ultra-nationalism sweep the world, where you're going to have some racial separatist and unprogressive ideas even coming from people like us. And then we still got to deal with the concept of the nuclear threat and climate change, how it's going to impact us in our communities. Some projects that we're doing to illuminate some of these concepts right now is curating the End of the World that we're doing with New York Live Arts, and then the upcoming Red Spring that Sheree Renée Thomas is going to be helping to promote. And so in closing, because I know we're here at the top of the hour, I want to thank you all for your patience and time, and keep up with the conversation, as there'll be some forthcoming events that we're going to promote here with this vehicle in the very near future. Thank you all for your patience and time. God bless.
You, guys.
Yes, Madasi, merci beaucoup, and bless up Dr. Reynaldo Anderson for the word, sounds, and power. You don't know. And I would like to say, give thanks to the co-hosts of this event and this global gathering of BSAM Houston, Schetauna Powell, and Tiffany, and Mary. Give thanks to BSAM Memphis, Sheree Renée Thomas, and to the family of BSAM Canada, Queen Kukoyi, and Nico Taylor. And thank you to all the associates and affiliates of BSAM who spoke today and shared and held space around the world. And thank you to all you who attended, who are watching this, who are engaging with us, for your questions, for your comments, and for your time and energy. May the spirit of Garvey continue to live among us. May we always remember the seeds that we are planting for the future. And more importantly, let us never forget that the ancestors are always with us and the future is among us. Done now. Bless up.